And we welcome up Bruce. Great shoes too.
Good morning, everybody. That's a Ponzi photo. I just thought that it was quite a unique experience. We were sitting in a cloud being rained on. That was kind of cool, hey? And then, Trudy, I know you said that some of the kind of points of view are probably going to be controversial. In true Safa fashion, I've got a feeling that I'm going to be throwing a lot of bombs this morning, so I kind of apologize in advance of that, but I'll try and back up everything I'm saying. So, failing right out of the gates. Okay. I'm also aware that that's a rather dramatic title for anybody who hasn't had a second coffee this morning, but a little bit of clickbait, a little bit of thing going on. And I'll back that up. So at Hyper, we kind of are focused on the physical format and typically big box retail physical formats. And a lot of people around the world and locally have a lot to say about that, and I guess we're one of those people who have opinions. But I think where we, as Hyper, possibly differ from a lot of other people is that we don't talk about what is going to happen. We talk about the future in terms of a choice. And I think that's incredibly important. It's not a predetermined future, it's something that we get to make. And we can choose to continue to look at the physical format. If this is disturbing anybody, I can stop doing it, by the way. If we continue to look at the physical format in the way that we have been looking at it, through the lens of it being a transactional platform and a fulfillment platform, we can continue to do that. The data and the trends seem to suggest that going down that path is really a slow decline into irrelevance, and that's the death part of the title. And I don't want to I want to be clear that we're not talking about the death of the retailer or the death of the brand. We're talking about the death of the format. We can go down that path. What that will probably mean is that the retailer or the brand will pivot its focus, pivot its investments, choose to do other things. But we at Hyper, we actually have a different approach to this. We're quite positive about the future of the physical format because we believe it offers unique possibilities. This is me just being stressed and nervous walking up and down, by the way. So, and when we look at that future and through a positive lens, we have a reason to believe that it can be positive. Why? Because we look at that physical format and we go, there isn't a better format to offer the audience, the user, the shopper, consumers, a unified brand experience. A fully immersive, sensorial, physical experience. There's no better platform to do that. We're also looking at it and we're going, there's a lot of positives out there for this brand, for this platform, for this physical platform. We've got a lot of people coming through that. We've got a lot of audience. We've got a lot of opportunities that don't provide that glass, the experiences under glass can't really provide. So we look at this and we go, if we can adapt, if we can change our thinking, the future of the physical store, the physical format actually could be a very, very positive one. But as I say, if we make that choice, we've got to do a lot of rethinking and a lot of reimagining. Okay, so I love this quote. It's by a very smart guy called Doug Stevens, who calls himself a retail prophet, so don't assume that's me. Go and check him out, he's super smart. But I love this quote. It usually terrifies a lot of people in the room, especially retailers. So if you look at that quote and you go, all right, 99% of retail was built to succeed in the 20th century. That means that it's built to fail in the 21st. What does he mean by that? What he's really saying is that the old model was use paid media to drive footfall to this physical format and optimize that physical format for transaction. In the marketing space, we kind of look at that as the media funnel or the purchase funnel, and boom, there's the store at the end of that. But that's not going to work in the modern times and in the 21st century. The twist that he's kind of talking about here is that what we need to do is realize that the physical format, the store, is as much a media platform as a transactional platform. And when you have that mindset, the challenge is now what are you going to do with that media format, that prime media format? And he goes further, he kind of talks about how In the digital touch points across the user journey and the brand universe, there is a decreasing brand engagement and an increasing transactional engagement across those things. Social commerce. But then you look at the store and you realize that the inverse is actually occurring, that there is a increasing brand engagement inside of this platform and potentially a decreasing transactional function. And that's a good thing, because it opens up the possibility of us having a multifunctional space. So again, it's a mindset. We can choose to follow the status quo. Can be done, it is a choice. Or we can choose to adapt. And if we choose to adapt, we're going to have to make some big decisions. Now, that stat isn't there to shock anybody or freak anybody out or rub anybody's noses in it. I think it is interesting. I think a lot of people would have assumed that e-com sales were higher than 14% in New Zealand across all retail. It's not the case. And I'm not suggesting that, that's why physical retail is always going to be the most awesome thing in the world. That stat for me is there because it paints a picture of an opportunity. But it's an opportunity with a countdown set to it. It's a moment of opportunity. That figure obviously isn't going to be as high as that forever. So we're sitting on this gold mine. We know we've got these really valuable assets called these physical spaces. But we also know that we've got wonderful things occurring in them now, and that gives me the opportunity to leverage that into something else. But I can only do that while those numbers are still high. If that falls below a certain threshold, I lose the opportunity to leverage these physical platforms into something else. I love this photo, by the way. So I think it's also worth mentioning, and we've kind of mentioned it, you mentioned it, Greg mentioned it as well. We obviously have some major problems that we have to deal with. Some of them are global generic problems in retail, some of them are more specific and local problems. The issue of the first issue is kind of something that I'm quite, I've spent a long time in retail getting the scars of retail. And one thing has been clear to me if I look backwards at this thing, and it's that the physical store is effectively back-engineered for the supply chain. From a marketing perspective, we tend to think of, here's the purchase funnel and the store's over there, but actually it's probably more accurate to suggest that the physical format is the first point of the supply chain. The supply chain wags the dog, and the stores have been back-engineered to work for that. And we need to flip that thinking, but that's not easy. That's really difficult to flip that thinking. And that kind of structural problem, and we mentioned it before as well, we can't just shift the mindset, we have to shift the structure and the processes. And I also, by the way, hate the word omnichannel. And I had a great conversation with a senior exec at P&G a couple of years ago, and we were talking about omnichannel, and he hit the nail on the head. He said, look, we know we're supposed to deliver omnichannel. We know that the shoppers don't think in terms of channels. But the reason why we, P&G, and retailers haven't been able to truly deliver omnichannel experiences is because the internal structures aren't set up to deliver omnichannel. We can't expect that we're going to deliver this if we operate within siloed structures. And until those silos get broken down, we can't really deliver what we're saying we're going to deliver to the customer. So structurally, we've got a major problem here that we have to get over. The second point is scale. We don't have scale here. Since the beginning of COVID, Janita, I'm glad that you're losing weight. Since the beginning of the COVID, I'm like a one-man trying to increase scale in New Zealand by eating everything that's not locked down. But we don't have scale here, so we have to think radically different. A lot of the things that are working overseas, working in different markets, they're really hard to apply here because we don't have the same ROI models. We don't gain the benefits of the economies of scale that a lot of the other participants in larger markets have. But probably the biggest issue that I would call out with regards to scale is that we don't have the burning desire for differentiation and innovation and distinction or competitive advantage that typically comes from a dog-eat-dog competitive landscape that is usually occurring in the greater markets. Okay, that's a big one. And then the last issue, I kind of should be looking there, but I keep wanting to look there. And this one is a problem of our own making, and it's about shopper behavior. Seth Godin said, there's a reason why your customers only are concerned about price, and it's because you haven't given them anything else to be concerned about. And that's really important to me. We've done a great job at teaching the shoppers to only care about price and prioritize it above all else. Everyone in this room knows that if that's what we continue to do, it's a race to the bottom. Okay, so most brands, most retailers have started the journey of trying to broaden the scope of what value means to the shoppers, but I can tell you for free, we've got a hell of a long way to go on that journey. All right, so I also want to make sure that you guys don't think that I'm just advocating for putting the physical format on life support. I'm not. I want this to be radically different. I want this to be sustained survival based on deep relevance and good commercials. And if we do it right, we actually stand to benefit from some significant benefits within the physical format. Shoof, I'm walking a lot. We can build, if we adapt correctly, we can build this new medium, this prime media channel, to drive awareness, to increase salience, to increase cross-sell, to increase basket size, to increase conversion, to increase brand engagement and triggering within the customer cycle, within the customer journey. And here's a good one as well, to potentially increase supplier-funded revenue streams into the retailer, because why? It's a prime media space. There's money to be made in this thing. Sorry to make it about money, but it is about money. And I do manipulate people. Sorry. But that's okay, so we're going to talk about 3 ways, or I'm going to talk about 3 ways that we can, hands up if you are intimately involved in a marketing team. You are inside a marketing team. All right. Good. Is anyone store ops or store design? Good. All right. So this is aimed at the marketing people. So I'm not going to really talk about what I think store design should be. I'm going to talk about what marketing can do in the future of these new physical platforms. And how we can reposition, if we adapt well, how we can reposition the physical format at the center of the brand universe, the center of the customer journey. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is, again, as I mentioned, this little issue of structure. We have some serious silo operations going on within the retailers. So the marketing teams and the store op teams and the store design teams and those teams that kind of typically curate the stores is not a good relationship, okay? Bit of a love-hate relationship going on there. It's a scenario where each thinks that they're the partner in the relationship doing all the heavy lifting. All right? And fundamentally, what's occurring is that there isn't a seamless system that allows the marketing teams to access these platforms and treat those platforms as a legitimate media platform. We tend to think of the problem at Hyper in terms of an analogy called runways and airplanes. You need both. And you don't build runways if you don't understand what an airplane does, okay? So store ops and store design going off and building stores without an intimate knowledge of what marketing is trying to do is a waste of time, all right? We need to get the marketing department involved in the development of the experiences inside of these physical formats. So firstly, let's talk about the runways. The runways are an understanding of what spaces or platforms the marketing teams can access within these spaces. We need to go in there as the marketing teams and understand what we have to play with. Okay, and we have to formalize those. Then we also need to turn around and look at the store ops teams and the design teams and realize, okay, that's going to suffice for a little bit, but it's not going to suffice for everything. What new platforms or spaces do we need to create? And I want to stress that creation is a collaboration between the marketing teams and the store ops design teams. If you're in the marketing team right now, hands up if you've participated in the development of a new experience that has stayed as a permanent experience in store. 2, well done. 3, 4, nice. Stop. No, okay. And that's really fundamentally the problem here, is that if it's a prime media channel and the marketing teams have got nothing to do with it, what the fuck is happening? All right? So the second one now is again, kind of linked to this idea that scale isn't providing a massive need for differentiation and distinction. For me, this is really, really important, and it's about brand, okay? We are running around looking and understanding shoppers and going, that's what their needs are and their expectations, and that's cool, we need to deliver to those. But frankly, we have a higher purpose here. We have to deliver to those needs and wants in a way unique to our brand, okay? That's distinction, that's branding. And we need to start finding out what those points of difference are and extracting them from the brand strategy and going, all right, that's what our brand positioning is, that's what our brand experience is supposed to be. What about that brand positioning and brand experience can I take to the store design and build for engaging experience that our shoppers actually go, shit, yeah, you gave me exactly what I wanted, but you gave it to me in the way that only you can give it to me. And I think that's really important to kind of understand. We have to kind of look at these spaces and go, all right, you've got me for 2 hours. What are you going to do for those 2 hours to make me feel like I've spent a valid amount of my day with you? How are you going to reward me for that time? How are you going to give me experiences that make me realize what your brand positioning is in the market? How do you get rewarded by these experiences? And I think that's a nice way to think about signature experiences. They are the rewards that we give to our users. I'm not even saying shoppers, our users, for giving their time to us. Okay? This last one, I'm moving at a steady clip here. You need to say thank you for taking up some time because I'm moving quite fast. Okay, this last problem is about future-proofing. Now, I probably think this is one of my main issues. We're building and iterating on the wrong time frame or the wrong time scale. When you build for the physical, you've got to look at the future. You can't look for the now. Well, it's a very simple reason why. Building physically operates at a different time scale as doing what digital marketing can do for obvious reasons. By the time we actually get a full store built somewhere over here or updated store specs across a universe of stores, that's taken a significant amount of time. By the time that's happened, today's needs and wants have passed. So by definition, we have to look 5 years into the future and work out what that is. And I don't just mean understanding what the shopper's needs and wants are. I mean understanding what we want our store experience, our physical platform experience to be, what we want that to be within the brand universe, within the customer journey. That's a vision of the future. And that's really, really difficult to do. And I would suggest that it's probably one of the things that I've seen most missing in the retail puzzle here in New Zealand. And I was speaking to Unita earlier before. I've worked in a lot of places around the world in retail, and I came with a high degree of arrogance when I walked into New Zealand going, I fucking know retail. And I had my ass shown to me very quickly. Okay, this is a unicorn market. It abides by very few rules in the world. So I've had to relearn a lot. But one of the things that I hold on to is that you've got to have a clear vision for the future, a clear role of what you are attempting to do. And I've seen a lot of customer journey maps in my time. And when I look at those, I see the physical store in that or the physical format in that very rarely. But even when it is in there, it's usually shown as facilitating a shopper mission. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the C-suite understanding whether or not they're going to abide by the old model, the new model per Doug Stevens, whether or not we're going to reframe our objectives of this physical platform, whether or not we truly understand that this physical platform can give us not just one function, i.e. transaction, but can do a lot of other metrics for the brand. And we acknowledge that and we move away from, for instance, a traditional metric that would be sales per square meter. Okay? If I do that and I follow that sales per square meter, it's incredibly difficult for all of the talk of retail theatre. It's incredibly difficult to get store ops who are managing the store to engage with brand experience because it's not their KPI. All right? So for me, I want a vision of the future. But this leads to something else. A vision of the future is not just words on a page. I've been a brand strategist in my past life. Words on a page do not get you very far. Okay? We need to visualize these visions of the future. And I mean that in a really powerful way. If you're going to get a lot of stakeholders on board an idea or a vision of the future, and there are a lot of stakeholders in physical retail, the best way to do so is to paint a picture of what you want that future to be. And we're in a really nice place at the moment where we've got a lot of great tools that help virtually and physically bring that vision to life. And not only for that 5-year future, but we can iterate, we can prototype, we can test, we can stress test these ideas using these models, using physical prototype stores, using digital 3D virtual stores. A lot of things we need to play a lot more with that visualization. The one thing I want to make really apparent across all 3 of these things that I've spoken about is that when I look backwards at the retailers and a lot of the clients that I work with, and I go, which department knows the most about your shopper and about your brand? It's not store ops, it's marketing, okay? If we don't bring those people into the development of these experiences and link those experiences back to brand, back to shopper needs, then the marketers are being wasted. They've got incredible creativity to bring to the party, but they're being shielded away from one of the prime media channels. Massive, massive mistake. Okay, so to recap, airplays and runways, signature experiences, rapid prototyping or visualization and experimentation. So a kind of call out to me for the airplanes and runways. We need to get the marketers involved in the development of some of these experiences in store, get them into the store design game, get them into the curatorship. How else are they going to actually make sure that the experiences are on point, on brand? The second thing is obviously to get the store as a prime media channel into the media matrix, the wider media matrix. Right now it's kind of over there and I don't really want to get too involved in it, but speak to most media people and they go, yeah, the store over there. It needs to be inside the traditional media matrix. Signature experiences, okay. Distinctive, differentiated, i.e. competitive advantage experiences that basically position your physical format as a proof point of your brand, okay? Because if you do that, the competitor can't just copy it because that's not their brand, okay? You're creating differentiation and competitive advantage. Again, a nice way to think about those signature experiences, the reward for those people spending their time with you. And this last point around experimentation or prototyping, this idea of visualizing. I bumped into a really, really nice design approach recently called zero-based design. And you can go and check it out. There's a lot more to it, but here's what I took out of this, and I fucking love this. Zero-based design basically spoke about this idea of going, we have an inherent problem in that our design process work forwards towards an objective. Zero-based design stops that and goes, scrap everything, create a blank slate, and create a perfect what-if scenario. They call it sunny day scenario. All things being equal, on a big blank slate, what would your perfect scenario be? Define that and work backwards. And I thought that was really nice because if you work forwards, you drag all your legacy problems with you and you find you can't actually iterate out of the box. Working backwards from a scenario out there changes the game, forces you to do revolutionary jumps instead of iterative ones. Really, really powerful way forward. So I would encourage the retailers in the rooms and the brands who assist them and the marketing partners who assist them to help visualize, help craft what that sunny day scenario looks like. I like this phrase. It's obvious that I'm a fan of that, and I think everybody kind of would be a fan of that. Basically there to remind us that being the biggest, having the greatest volume, isn't necessarily the thing that's going to make you survive into the future. But what I really love about this slide is that it's been mistakenly attributed to Darwin. It's Darwinian thinking, but it actually came from a business professor in the 60s who was describing Darwinian influences on creating competitive advantages for big business. And I thought, shit, yeah, spot on. That's exactly right, okay? This idea that if you are there to create a competitive advantage, lean hard into your ability to adapt. Now, we know we're going to have to adapt. And we're going to have to adapt in, as I say, big revolutionary steps, and I like that. There's potentially three ways of us thinking about the big jumps. We can do it through three words. We can talk about stores, we can talk about spaces, or we could talk about stages. For me, stores, I feel, is reminiscent of the past because it presumes a singular function around transaction. We can talk about spaces, it's better, it's nicer. But my issue with spaces is that it's a passive word. You don't quite know what you're supposed to do with the space. I like the word stages as a kind of forward-facing word because it puts a focus, an active focus, on bringing to life the brand story, the brand narrative. You have got this channel. I know we don't like the word channel. You've got this platform. How does your brand tell everybody about itself in this platform? So for me, stop talking about stores, stop thinking about stores, start thinking about stages. Now, it's nice to make that mindset shift, but as I said, it's really difficult to actually change all the processes and systems that go behind that. It's really difficult. In fact, let me just say it's really fucking difficult. But that doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. Okay? It's nice that we're talking about here. I was, just before the race last year, I was invited down into the Team Emirates Development Center, and something one of the engineers said blew my mind, changed how I thought about things. He straight up just said, listen, if we're building boats, we've already lost the race. I was like, what? He says, no, we're building wind-powered flying machines. And I was like, fuck, yeah, okay, go, yeah, let's go do that. That's how I think we need to think of what we need to do in retail. Make real big retail innovation jumps, okay? Now again, I got here quickly, so sorry everyone. But again, adapt. I want to say that I think I've put a case forward to say we do have a choice. We could choose status quo. I prefer to choose an alternative option that reimagines the physical platform because I believe there are genuine benefits for that. But I also want to make sure that we understand that it's not just adapt, it's adapt now because we've got a window. Okay, going back to that big stat before, we've got big audiences. They are there with us, long dwell times, engaging experiences that, as I said, cannot be beaten, cannot be duplicated with under-glass experiences. The moment those volume numbers change, we've lost our leverage to do it. So we've got to adapt, and we've got to adapt now. Thank you very much.